You know, every year I like to pick one game that I think you should play at Halloween. I did drop a video earlier this month about DayZ, and I still stand by that one if you want a tense, unpredictable survival experience. We're talking about that one game that absolutely owns Halloween. A game that's equal parts nostalgia, terror, and isolation. I'm talking about Dead Space. Now, I'll be honest, I've been a massive fan of this series for years. Well, at least Dead Space 1 and 2. Let's quietly move past number 3. When I heard they were doing a remake of the original Dead Space back in 2023, I was genuinely pumped. It wasn't just another remake announcement. This one actually meant something. The original was one of the best horror survival games ever made, and I thought seeing it reimagined with modern visuals, improved gameplay, and all that eerie atmosphere intact, that was exactly the kind of experience I wanted. I'll admit, I actually debated for a while which one to cover this time. There are so many great horror games out there right now, but something kept pulling me back to this one. Maybe it's because Dead Space always nailed that perfect mix of sci-fi and horror. The emptiness of space itself, it's beautiful but also terrifying. There's something about that endless black void that just gets under your skin. And I think that's part of why Dead Space always hit home for me. Even back when I was first playing it, it reminded me of one of my all-time favourite films, Aliens, which, looking back, my parents definitely shouldn't have let me watch it at such a young age. My mum may have got in trouble with my friend's mum for letting us watch it during one of my sleepovers. But that mix of claustrophobic corridors, haunting sound design, and the feeling that something's always watching you, Dead Space captured that perfectly. It's sci-fi horror done right. Gritty, brutal, and unnervingly quiet at times. So when the remake was announced, I was nervous since the original Dead Space holds a close space in my heart. But credit where it's due, Motive Studios absolutely nailed it. They managed to keep the spirit of the original alive while giving it a modern edge. They didn't just rebuild the same game with shinier textures, they actually made it better. It's smoother, more atmospheric, and somehow even more immersive than before. And for me, playing this on the PS5 just felt right. That's how I experienced the originals, sitting in the dark, controller in hand, sound turned way too high. So jumping back into the remake on PlayStation felt like coming full circle. Familiar, but sharper and more refined. From the moment the game is loaded up, I knew it wasn't just a nostalgic revisit, it was something special. So let's talk about what makes Dead Space one of the best horror experiences you can have this Halloween, and how this remake doesn't just live up to the original, it might actually surpass it. Let's talk about what makes Dead Space such a standout horror experience, the story. You play as Isaac Clarke, an engineer aboard a small repair ship called the USG Ishimura. He's not some hardened soldier or elite operative, he's just a guy doing his job, sent with a small crew to check on the massive mining vessel, the USG Ishimura. The Ishimura has gone silent out in deep space, and on paper, it's meant to be a routine repair mission. But the second you step aboard, it's clear something has gone horribly wrong. Ishimura feels eerily deserted when you arrive. Lights flickering, blood smeared across the walls, and a silence that just feels heavy. And then, within minutes, the silence is shattered when your crew is attacked by those grotesque, twisted creatures known as the Necromorphs. Reanimated corpses, reshaped into something alien and aggressive. From that point on, the game becomes a desperate fight for survival. Isaac's cut off from the rest of humanity, separated from his team, and forced to navigate the Ishimura's labyrinth of corridors, trying to piece together what went wrong. But there's more to it than just monsters in the dark. As Isaac digs deeper, he learns that the Ishimura has been overrun because something called the Marker, a mysterious alien artifact that seems to have invested both flesh and mind. The crew didn't just die, they were transformed, driven mad, and consumed by this strange alien influence. Layered over all of this, Isaac's personal mission. He's searching for his girlfriend, Nicole, who was stationed aboard the Ishimura. That thread of human connection, that hope of finding her, adds this emotional undertone that keeps you going even when everything feels hopeless. From the moment the game starts, the story just grabs you. You drop straight into Isaac's perspective, watching a haunting video message from Nicole right before the Kellyon crashes into the Ishimura. It sets the tone immediately. Dark, mysterious, and tense. There's no slow build up here. It's full immersion right from the start. And the atmosphere, the way the lights flicker, the way the ship creaks and groans as if it's alive. It all builds this feeling that something's constantly lurking around the corner. The remake does a brilliant job of keeping everything that made the original great, but it enhances it all in the right way. The atmosphere feels denser, the lighting more oppressive, and the sound design, easily one of the best parts, keeps you on edge the entire time. The way the distant clanks echo through the empty corridors, or whispers seem to follow you through vents, makes you feel genuinely paranoid. Narratively, the pacing is spot on. It never feels rushed or padded. The story unfolds naturally as you make your way through the Ishimura, with logs, terminals, and environmental storytelling filling the blanks. One of the best improvements over the original is how the optional objectives now feel more integrated. In the first game, they could sometimes feel a bit tacked on, but here, they actually add to the world building. helping you understand more about what happened to the crew before it all went to hell. And sure, Dead Space is a linear story. You're not making any branching decisions or shaping the plot through dialogue choices. But that's never been what the game's about. It's not trying to be a choice-driven narrative. It's about putting you in a terrifying situation and making you live through it. That said, I will say, there might be a way to see a slightly different ending if you dig deep enough. What kept me hooked was the mystery, the constant need to know more. What is the marker? What really happened to Nicole? And how far is Isaac willing to go to find the truth? Every chapter gives you just enough to pull you deeper, even when the game's at its most terrifying. And that's the perfect mix of curiosity and dread that keeps you pushing forward, even when every instinct tells you to turn the game off and walk away. I just want to take this moment to ask if you're enjoying this review so far, hit that thumbs up and subscribe for future video game reviews. Thank you! What really makes Dead Space stand out, even beyond its atmosphere and story, are the characters that pull you into this nightmare. Especially Isaac himself. Because here's the thing, space horror only works when you actually care about the people trapped in it. And that's where Dead Space really shines. There's a lot about this universe that's still a mystery. And that's what makes space exploration both fascinating and terrifying. If you can suspend your disbelief around the idea of an alien artifact, the marker, emitting some kind of frequency that bends reality and turns people into necromorphs, then what's left behind the sci-fi layer are characters that feel surprisingly grounded. Isaac's mission isn't about saving the galaxy or stopping some grand conspiracy. It's about trying to find and rescue someone he loves. And that's something everyone can relate to. Beneath the chaos and the gore, it's a human story. In the remake, giving Isaac a voice completely changes how the story lands. In the original, he was silent, which definitely added to the isolation. But here, it brings him to life. Hearing him talk, react, and actually feel the weight of what's happening makes a huge difference. You can sense his fear, confusion, and desperation, and it helps you, as the player, feel more connected to him. He's not just this blank protagonist anymore. He's someone you genuinely care about. And I'll be honest, horror games are a love-hate thing for me, especially now I'm older. They linger with me long after I've put the controller down. Dead Space is one of those. It gets under your skin. The way it builds its atmosphere, the way it makes you care about Isaac and what he's going through, it's relentless. You want him to survive, you want to see what happened to Nicole, you want to know the truth about the market and the Ishimura, even when part of you doesn't want to keep playing because it's just that intense. That's how you know the story and characters are doing the job. The dialogue throughout feels natural and believable. It doesn't over-explain things or treat the player like they need everything spelled out. Instead, it flows with the tension of the story. Short, sharp exchanges that add urgency, mixed with moments of quiet dread when you're piecing together logs or hearing survivors over comms. One of the touches I've always loved about Dead Space is how communication happens through those live feed holograms. There's this static, flickering crackle to the feed that feels authentic and eerie. Sure, it's also a cheap jump scare at half the time, but it works. It helps build that claustrophobic sense that no matter who's talking to you, you're still alone and danger's always seconds away. When it comes to gameplay, Dead Space does an incredible job of making every mechanic feel like an extension of its story. Everything you do, from how you move to how you fight, adds to the tension. The first thing you'll notice when you take control of Isaac is how heavy it all feels. There's this real weight to his movement, like you can feel the bulk to the engineering suit he's wearing. It's not sluggish for the sake of being slow, it's intentional. Every step, every turn, feels grounded, and that realism creates tension in a way that's hard to describe. When you hear a vent crash open somewhere behind you, and it takes just a second too long to turn around, that's when the fear kicks in. This game uses a slight delay to make you feel vulnerable, and it works beautifully. The aiming and the movement are tight, but still deliberate. You can strafe while aiming down sight, but you'll quickly realise how limited your speed is compared to the Necromorphs sprinting towards you. That imbalance, that feeling like you're always a bit slower, is exactly what keeps the pressure on. It's a reminder that you're not some action hero. You're an engineer, out of your depth, just trying to survive. At first, the controls feel a bit clunky, especially if you're used to a modern, fast-paced shooter. But as you keep playing, you start to see why everything's designed this way. It's all part of the immersion. You're meant to feel the weight of the suit, the resistance of every movement. By the time you reach the later chapters, it all feels natural. You adapt, just like Isaac does, and that shared evolution between player and character is part of what makes Dead Space so immersive. Combat itself is one of the most satisfying parts of the game. That's saying something considering how terrifying it can be. It's not your typical shoot-to-kill setup. The game's core mechanic is strategic dismemberment. You're not going for headshots here. You're cutting off limbs to slow down and disable the Necromorphs. It's clever, it's brutal, and it turns every encounter into this tense dance between survival and precision. What takes that system to the next level in the remake is the peeling system. This isn't just some visual upgrade. It completely changes how the combat feels. Each shot you take literally peels away layers of flesh, muscle, and bone depending on where you hit. And you can see the damage you're doing in real time. It's both gruesome and fascinating. It's not just for show either. You can weaken certain parts of the enemy before going for final dismemberment, giving you a visual clue of how much danger you're still in. And the detail is insane. The plasma cutter tears differently from the ripper blade or the line gun. Each weapon leaves its own mark, which makes every kill feel distinct and satisfying in its own twisted way. It's body horror turned into gameplay. Grotesque? Yes, but perfectly in line with Dead Space's identity. Combat, puzzles, and exploration all feel well balanced. You'll spend just as much time upgrading gear and solving environmental puzzles as you do fighting off necromorphs. The difficulty feels fair. The higher you go, the more careful and strategic you need to be. The remake also manages to keep a great flow between tense combat and quieter moments of exploration, where the environment itself becomes part of the storytelling. One of the most impressive systems working quietly in the background is the Intensity Director. It's EA Motive's secret weapon, a dynamic AI system that controls pacing and scares throughout the game. It's constantly monitoring how you're playing, how much ammo you have, how long it's been since your last fight, even how confident or stressed you seem, and then it adjusts the atmosphere accordingly. Sometimes that means a vent will burst open for no reason, other times lights will flicker, a pipe will explode, or you'll hear whispers echoing from nowhere. There are over 1,200 of these intensity events, and because they're reactive, every playthrough feels slightly different. Even if you backtrack through the same area, you'll never know exactly what's waiting for you. It's a brilliant system because it keeps the horror unpredictable. You can't rely on memory to anticipate when something's going to happen, and that unpredictability is pure Dead Space. But it's not just about constant fear. The Intensity Director also knows when to let you breathe, when to give you a moment of calm before pulling the rug from underneath you again. It's that ebb and flow of tension that makes the remake feel so much more alive than the original. As you progress, the gameplay evolves just enough to stay fresh. You'll unlock the stasis and telekinesis modules, tools that become essential for both combat and puzzles. Stasis lets you slow enemies or moving machinery, while telekinesis allows you to hurl or move objects. It's that layer of creativity to encounters, especially when resources start running low. You'll also find and upgrade new weapons, improve your suit, and spend power nodes to boost health, damage, and stasis duration. It's a rewarding progression system that keeps you experimenting without feeling grindy. Ultimately, the gameplay in Dead Space isn't there to support the horror. It is the horror. Every movement, every sound, every gunshot is designed to make you feel vulnerable, but capable. You're always surviving by the skin of your teeth, and that balance between control and panic is what makes this remake such an unforgettable experience. The world of Dead Space is incredibly immersive. It nails that cold, desolate feeling of being stranded in deep space. From the moment you step aboard the Ishimura, the game surrounds you with an atmosphere that feels both sterile and suffocating. The kind of setting that makes every flicker of light and echo of metal feel meaningful. Now, even if you were to remove the sound entirely, the visual alone could carry the immersion. The lighting, the textures, the way the blood and grime are smeared across the walls, it's all masterfully done. That said, if you're squeamish or not a fan of gore, this might not be the game for you. The dismemberment mechanic, literally cutting off limbs of necromorphs to survive, is as brutal as it sounds, but it fits perfectly with the tone and theme of the game. Given that the entire story takes place aboard a single ship, you might expect the environments to feel repetitive, but surprisingly, they don't. As you move through the Ishimura, each section feels distinct. From the dimly lit engineering deck to the eerie medical bays and the haunting crew quarters, the constant industrial design ties everything together, but there's enough variation between chapters to keep each area feeling fresh and memorable. The visuals match the story's tone perfectly. The dark, metallic environment amplifies the isolation and fear, reminding you constantly that you're alone, or at least that you wish you were. The necromorphs themselves evolve in design and type, changing how each encounter feels and keeping the horror from ever becoming predictable. On a technical level, I didn't encounter any issues on the PS5. The game runs smoothly, from lighting to texture details were rock solid. As for art style, it feels timeless. The design choices, the lighting, the attention to realism, they all make Dead Space look and feel like something will age incredibly well, much like the original did. If the visuals make the world of Dead Space feel real, the audio makes it terrifying. The soundtrack doesn't just punctuate key moments, it defines them, from the subtle, creeping tension during the exploration to the heart-pounding moments of combat. The music amplifies every emotion, keeping you constantly on edge. It's a masterclass in how sound can shape a player's experience. Where Dead Space really shines, though, is its soundscape. This isn't just about music, it's the environmental audio that makes Ishimura feel alive, or rather, unnervingly dead. Every metal creak, every vent breaking behind you, every distant pipe bursting or echoing clang contributes to the feeling of constant tension. And when necromorphs appear, their screams and their movement feel impossibly close, as if they're right behind you. It's terrifying and keeps your adrenaline spiking even when there's nothing in sight. To really experience this, headphones are a must. And I don't just mean a gaming headset. I've tested a few pairs that are relatively inexpensive, and they bring out every detail in the soundscape, the quietest echoes and the smallest mechanical tings, in a way that makes the game feel more alive. It's worth purchasing a decent pair of headphones. They're not overpriced, that let you hear everything, because Dead Space is built around audios as much as visuals. I'll leave a link in the description to these headphones, as I cannot recommend them more. The voice acting in the remake also elevates the experience. Giving Isaac a voice was a brilliant choice. Hearing his reactions, his fears, his determination adds personality and makes you genuinely care about his mission. The rest of the cast fits seamlessly into the world, providing you just enough context and emotion to make the crew feel real without ever pulling you out of the story. And I mentioned earlier that static buzz during the comms that adds authenticity and tension. It's little touches like this that make the Ishimura feel lived in and unpredictable. Ultimately, the audio in Dead Space does more than support the horror. It is the horror. It keeps you immersed, tense and invested, and it's why I can't recommend playing this game without a quality pair of headphones. Every footsteps, every whisper, every creak of the ship becomes part of the narrative, making the world feel truly alive or horrifyingly undead. When it comes to replayability, Dead Space actually gives you a surprisingly amount of reasons to jump back in. Once you've completed the main story, there's access to a secret ending, unlocked through a particular side quest, and only available in New Game Plus. I won't spoil the specifics, but it's a fun little extra that adds a layer of mystery and gives hardcore fans something to chase. It isn't necessarily canon, but it does make you wonder, if EA ever revisited Dead Space 2, how would that secret ending fit in? Beyond that, the game's difficulty settings add even more incentives to replay. You've got story, medium and hard, and completing the game on any difficulty unlocks impossible mode. Here, you're given just one life. If you die, you either restart the game or continue on hard difficulty. It's brutal, but rewards players with 3 unique bonuses: the hand cannon, burnished suit, and the untouchable achievement or trophy. That kind of challenge keeps the tension high, even after you've mastered the core story. Lengthwise, I felt the game offered plenty of content for the price. The main story and the side quests will take you between 15 and 20 hours to complete, depending on your chosen difficulty. The campaign itself is satisfying, and while the side objects, optional logs, and upgrades, there's a lot to explore on a single playthrough. Then, with New Game Plus and the high difficulty modes, the replay value skyrockets. And honestly, I'd absolutely revisit this world just for the experience. Playing the remake brought back so many memories of the 2008 original and Dead Space 2. Some of my favourite gaming moments actually come from that era. I remember one story from university. It was half term, the campus was empty, and a buddy and I decided to tackle hardcore mode in Dead Space 2. You get 3 saves, and the tension was unreal. I'm pretty sure a controller ended up whirling past my head at one point because of pure terror. But those moments were exhilarating. The fear, the high stakes, and the satisfaction of surviving impossible encounters made the whole experience unforgettable. The remake left me wanting more though, and after finishing it, I immediately wanted to revisit Dead Space 2. Unfortunately, EA has apparently confirmed that Dead Space 2 Remake is unlikely due to the remake's sales not meeting expectations. That is really disappointing because in my opinion, Dead Space 2 continued and expanded on the story perfectly and is arguably the better game. Still, knowing the original and the remake, I can't help but keep coming back, if only for that thrill of tension, exploration and visceral combat that defines the series. So, final thoughts. What really sticks with me after finishing Dead Space is just how incredible the soundscape is. Honestly, I think it could be up there with the best in gaming. Every creak, every distant clang, every subtle note of the soundtrack works together to keep you on edge. And trust me, if you want to experience it properly, you need a good pair of headphones. There's so much layered into the audio, from the smallest environmental sounds to the heart-pounding score, that keeps you fully immersed and constantly tense. It amplifies horror in ways visuals alone simply can't. Coming into the remake, I wasn't sure how they could improve the game I already loved. The original Dead Space set the bar high, but Motive Studio didn't just polish it. They expanded the experience. The intensity director system keeps tension unpredictable. The pilling system makes combat more visceral and strategic. And the enhancements to the side quests gives you a fuller sense of the crew's story. On top of that, the audio and visuals together create a level of immersion that genuinely elevates the fear factor. I would absolutely recommend Dead Space, whether you're revisiting the 2008 version or diving into the 2023 remake. For me, this is the Halloween game of 2025. It's the perfect mix of isolation, terror, and adrenaline, capturing that unique fear of being in space alone, being stalked by things you can't always see, and never knowing when something might leap out at you. Compared to other games in the genre, Dead Space does something special. It doesn't rely solely on cheap jump scares, it builds a world that feels alive, oppressive, and unrelentingly terrifying. It's a masterclass in tension, atmosphere, and horror storytelling. On my personal rating scale, I'm going to give Dead Space the all-nighter rating. You'll lose sleep, not just because of pure terror, but because of how completely immersive and gripping the world is. The stories, the visual, audio, and gameplay all combine into an experience that keeps you hooked from start to finish. And that's where I leave it. Thank you so much for watching. Do you agree with my pick for Halloween this year, or is there another game you recommend? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Also, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and hit subscribe for future reviews.